For years, the Export-Import Bank didn't have the board members it needed to be fully operational. But no sooner did it get a quorum than its charter came up for renewal. This week, Republican Senator Kevin Cramer and Democratic Senator Kirsten Sinema co-authored a bill to reauthorize the Ex-Im Bank. And Senator Cramer told our Kevin Cirilli that he thinks President Trump has had something of a change of heart.
When the president ran, he was, sort of anti-export-import. Shortly after he was elected and learned from more manufacturers and exporters the importance of it, he really did get on board.
We welcome now Fred Hochberg, former Ex-Im Bank head and author of the forthcoming book, Can't Come Too Soon, Trade is Not a Four-Letter Word. He's here for today's conversation. Chief, welcome. It's good to have you, Fred.
Good to be here.
So it's interesting to hear a Republican talk about a Republican president in terms of the Ex-Im Bank, because crony capitalism wasn't mentioned. I mean, a lot of Republicans through your tenure, frankly, were saying this is crony capitalism. What's changing?
Well, first, the Export-Import Bank used to be the darling of the Republican Party. So maybe they're going back to their roots of being pro-business, pro-jobs, pro-globalism, pro-internationalism. So I think that Donald Trump has made it very clear that we need to compete globally. He's taken on China. And if we're looking for a tool to take on China around the world, frankly, the Export-Import Bank is one of the best tools he's got.
Well, I read that someplace, maybe in Politico, maybe written by you, specifically saying that it's the best weapon that President Trump has, right, really, in dealing with China on the trade issue. Explain how that works.
Well, first of all, there are about 100 export-import banks around the world, 100 countries. China has 4 banks that promote and finance their exports. So for us to unilaterally disarm and not have anything to counter that is just lunacy. So I think that we are hopefully getting back. I'm very pleased the Senate is taking this up. Chairwoman Maxine Waters in the House on the House Financial Services, working with her Republican counterpart, also has a bill. The important thing is the bank charter. It's one of those rare sunset agencies that will expire at the end of September. So there's not a lot of time. The House is on recess. Senate's about to go on recess. So it's important that we get that reauthorized and fully charged so it can really support small businesses and U.S. jobs.
We've just had the second round of Democratic presidential debates, 2 nights of them out in Detroit. And one of the things that struck me was how little talk there was of trade. I mean, we hear Bloomberg talk about trade and U.S.-China trade and U.S.-Europe trade, Canada trade all the time. Very little talk about it. There was one reference, at least, from the mayor of New York City, Mr. de Blasio, who seems to be against the successor to NAFTA. This is what he said.
President Trump is trying to sell NAFTA 2.0. He's got a new name for it. It's just as dangerous as the old NAFTA. It's going to take away American jobs like the old NAFTA, like it did to Michigan. And we cannot have Democrats be party to a new NAFTA.
Well, there's a point of view, and particularly in Michigan. I come from Michigan. I'm not sure NAFTA took the jobs away. But why have we gotten to this position in this country where, as you say, trade is not a 4-letter word?
Well, I think partly what happens is when we talk about a place like Michigan or Ohio or Pennsylvania, some of those states clearly had a big impact when we signed NAFTA, and a number of manufacturing jobs moved offshore. What we failed to do is really have a remedy for people who are losing their jobs. And when we talk about lifelong learning, I think it falls on deaf ears. I like the term someone gave me, lifelong readiness. Like a hurricane, we have to be always ready for change. And I think I think the political elites misled a lot of people in saying it's going to be great for everybody. So, yes, there were winners and there were losers. We didn't take care of the losers.
At the same time, if you talk, for example, you talk to General Motors about how many people they employ in Mexico as opposed to how many people they employ in the United States, there's no comparison at all. In fact, a lot of the jobs, I believe, got lost to automation. They were robots. They weren't Mexican.
A lot got lost to automation. And frankly, were we not doing some of the manufacturing and assembly in Mexico, we would have uncompetitive cars at much too high prices that would not have a global market, would not have companies like GM, which is now sort of doing very well compared to a lot of the auto sector.
So that debate was in Michigan. I think that was not a coincidence, given what happened in 2016. They've got to persuade those workers in southeastern Michigan that, in fact, the Democrats have an answer to their problems, the way President Trump said he had an answer. What is the answer when it comes to trade? Let's have a peek inside your book. What do you say to the auto workers in southeastern Michigan?
I think the answer is we need to expand the pie. I think too many times the Democrats talk about how do we slice the pie more finely and more carefully and more fairly. And I imagine there are a number of people in Michigan who think it's cut too fairly, too precisely as it is. We need to be talking about expansion. We have to stop crouching into victimhood, that we are a victim of American workers are a victim, American patients are a victim, the American economy is a victim. I think that's all wrong. We have a robust economy. We're still the largest economy in the world. Yes, we have a lot of competition with China. The way we keep winning is by innovating and exporting and putting our best foot forward, not in this protectionist victimhood state of mind.
So Fred Hochberg runs for president, and he goes out.
Don't do that.
He goes out to Pennsylvania, to Ohio, to Michigan, to Wisconsin. What does he tell the workers? Says, look, my policy on trade will actually make your life better, your children's life better. It'll make your schooling better, things like that. What is the
Well,
pitch?
I think one of the pitches, which, the problem is, for example, a trade deal are really never about jobs. They're about alliances. They're about creating the rules of the road. So, one, we need to always have a more robust export policy. President Obama had a policy called National Export Initiative to double exports. That actually set the country on a course. A number of governors and mayors I worked with really worked hard. Governor Snyder was one of them in Michigan, about how do we do more exports. That's number one. Number two is nobody likes to talk about. The fact is, with global trade, with merchandise coming from Southeast Asia and China, the cost of food, the cost of clothing has come down. All right, what we spend on clothing and food is reduced. That actually is a benefit to workers. What's hurting workers right now is the tariffs, which are going to add about $400 to the average family this year, and could be as much as $800, erasing the entire tax cut, because these tariffs are really what's hurting work.
Is there any prospect of a Democratic candidate getting nominated who has a view anything close to what you say on trade, or is it really anathema at this point? I mean, if somebody came out, would they just be perceived as being anti-jobs?
Well, I think a lot of Democrats, we certainly saw on stage, are afraid of trade, and I think that's a mistake. I think they need to talk about it differently. Governors frequently have a very different way of talking because they see the jobs created in their states, or even mayors, because mayors and governors are worrying about their local economy. Senators tend to be focused on taxes and regulation, not really about job creation in their own states.
If one of the problems we've had in the past was comparative advantage really working, it's very successful, but there are some people that really get hurt by it. From my hometown of Flint, I can show you where it happened. Does that mean we have to invest a lot more money in training? You said
lifelong readiness.
Lifelong readiness. And how long does that take? That sounds like sort of the next generation will be ready, but we can't fix your problem.
No, I think everybody has to think we're in a job. It's not going to be the same job for the next 5 years. I mean, part of the thing is change is happening so much faster. So what we really need to say to people, no, you cannot assume you're going to go to work at 25 and stay there till 30 and retire with a pension. Those days are over. They've been over for a long time. We haven't really been truthful to people about it. We have to start saying, here the truth is, you need to keep preparing yourself. And that's like on-the-job training. It's not sitting in a classroom, 70% of Americans don't have a college degree. So when we say lifelong learning, if the idea I have to go back to class, that's a non-starter. So I think that word is dead on arrival.